welcome to Steam to Live the Dream. And we're back for part 10 of the series, Are You Pregnant with Purpose? So, what are we talking about today? Beginning again after loss. What does that look like? This is the thing that nobody really wants to talk about, especially with pregnancy or anything else. The things that you can lose: miscarriage, abortion, premature birth. Now, under the context of what it looks like to go through these experiences, a miscarriage, this is when you get pregnant, possibly unknowingly, and you lose it. These are pregnancies that you see happen where you'll find out you'll either have an ectopic pregnancy or you may have a chemical pregnancy. Some people say 1 minute they found out they were pregnant, the next minute the pregnancy was gone. It was just not there. Another woman says that they were pregnant and it just happened. They just lost the child. Now, what's more devastating is when you carry a child 3 or 4 or 5 months and then you lose the child, which is known to be it can be a stillbirth, because in some cases, depending on how big the fetus is, it has to literally be birthed out at this point, but it's dead. And I remember I heard a minister talking about this one time where she said that she got pregnant and she lost the child at a later stage. I think it was 4, 5, maybe even 6 months. And she said that when she lost the child, they had to go in, scrape the child out. But her body still was recognizing itself as being pregnant for the next few months. She had to still go through the hormonal issues, mood swings, and everything as if she was still pregnant, which was hard, yet and still. She was still gaining weight, she was still eating, she was still dealing with all of that, and she was still moody. And no child was going to come from that. And that was very painful. How does this work when you're pregnant with purpose? Well, let's say you get an idea. You've come up with a concept, an idea, something that you want to birth, something that you want to create and turn into a business. You love this idea. This is something that you're saying, I can do this. You create a plan, you create a series of steps in order to get to it. Figure out how you want to steward that thing in order to develop it into a full-fledged thing. And you jump into it real fast. But you believe, because you have the steps, you have the idea, you pretty much understand it, that you'll be able to birth it out 1, 2, 3, 4, go through the steps, and it'll be done. It doesn't always work this way. How do I know? I've gone through multiple processes of this and couldn't figure out why it was that this thing could not be birthed at this particular point in time. And sometimes simply it's just a timing thing. You'll go through the process and get from step 1 through 5 and wonder why you can't go from 5 to 15. and you just get stuck on 5, and you're like, why can't I move past this? And this is a point in time in which you may actually abort the process because you're like, there's no way. It's not that it's no way, it's just that at this particular point in time, you don't have the rest of the instructions for that thing. So what I've learned is it's not a failure. It's not that it was aborted. It's that you need to just set it back on the shelf, put it down for later. When you come back, you may change the name, you may change the steps, you may change the direction, the instruction, and the approach to how to get it, but you still won't complete the project. If that's 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, how do I know? There have been times that I've come up with project ideas and I was given the unction to go back to a project that I came up with 2 years ago. Perfect example. I'm reinitiating the previous podcast. It's been on my heart for about 2 months that it came to me one morning. I want to go back to the old podcast. And I'm like, but I got this podcast. And it came back to me again. And I was like, but why? And I said, I guess I have to. I came up with a whole new logo for it. I came up with all new stuff for it. And I'm like, but I let that go. And it's like, go back. And even as much as a week ago did I come up with the concept of what I was going to do with that podcast and how to structurally organize it for shows, show topics, and how to launch it. To relaunch it again. I'm like, sometime it's timing. Now, what if you have an idea, you share it with the wrong group of people, and it dies before you get it off the ground? How I understand this, sometimes you'll get an idea. Let me quote the Bible when it comes down to the story of Joseph. Joseph was a dreamer. Joseph came up with this dream, and he had a dream that he saw himself being a royal person and his family was bowing to him, and he just shared it with his family because he was like, oh, I had this dream. He really probably didn't really think too much of it when he had the dream because he thought it was just a dream. But the second that he shared it, his family shut him down and went after him like he tarnished the entire family name and he was worth killing over a dream. Why? What do you do? You ever have dream killers? I remember years ago I used to watch the Braxton Family Values, and Toni Braxton's sister, Trina, used to say that her husband at the time was he a dream killer or a negative Nancy? But she used to always say that he could kill something in a minute. But it's like, when you are a driven person, the one thing that I notice, if I have a vision, if I have a thought, a dream, an idea, something that's close to the chest that I want to develop and create, please understand, I'm not telling anybody I know unless I trust that you have the capacity to be able to enrich the vision that I have. Because if you don't, you're going to kill it. It's going to die with you because you're going to say every negative thing that you possibly can say to destroy the conceptual idea that that thing could ever come to pass. There are things my family has no idea about that I'm working on. And they're going to find out about it until it happens. And when they do, it's going to be like, how did that happen? I thought you didn't know because you didn't know and you couldn't maintain nor handle what I was doing. So I decided to wait, and I let you see me when you see me, hear me, wherever you hear me. You see what I'm saying? Some dream killers will abort your baby for you. They the ones that kick you in the stomach when they find out that you're pregnant. You have a project, baby. You want to create it. You want to plan it. You want to turn it into something. You want to have it nurture. You want to grow it for several months. You want to launch it, and you want to put it within the catalyst. Sometimes you have to chase after it to win before it dies or it's dead and gone. Sometimes you have to go through different processes trying to keep up appearances. You're um, hemorrhaging funds, liquidating assets. You're trying to keep it afloat, but it's dying and it's not dead. It possibly can come back at some particular point in time, but admitting that is a failure can be detrimental. That trying can keep, so you keep trying to keep trying to keep up with appearances is what you're pretty much doing. So yeah, it can be a difficult process. But there's the other part where the baby dies. Sometimes you'll get an idea for something, and your own self sabotage will destroy it before it can become anything. Because you'll destroy it. You'll come up with every reason why you can't create it, you can't do it, and you'll destroy it because you don't believe that you can do it. See, your brain tries to keep you safe. Your brain will remind you of every reason why that thing could never work because it will pick out similar situations and circumstances throughout your life that match the point in time when you tried to do something bold and courageous and risky and show you how many times you failed at that thing coming to pass. And you'll be like, in order to convince you, because your brain wants to stay in a safe zone, that this will not work. So because this isn't going to work, do not try it. Do not attempt it. Do not go towards it. Do not go forward in it. Don't even think about it. Now, next, you have age. Age can be a positive or negative effect on a child. At a certain point in time, society tells you your clock starts ticking right around 34, 35. They start to tell you your clock starts ticking. You need to start preparing to think about having a child at this particular point. Women can have children, don't get me wrong, from age 35 to 50, but there was one time there was a woman that had a set of twins at 63. And I found out an interesting piece of information recently when I was looking at a few medical videos on my YouTube, where it showed me that women that have children at an older age are actually more likely to have multiples, which I was kind of shocked at, which puts me in an interesting space because I'm about to be 35. I know I don't look 35, but I'm about to be 35. But yeah, you're more likely to have multiples after 35. And multiples already run in my family, so that's a double whammy anyway. So who knows what'll happen when I have kids? Only the Lord knows what's going to happen when I have kids. Whenever the Lord blesses me in that field, in that area, to bring about the ordained man that He wants in my life. In the name of Jesus. But you are at more higher of a risk to have a miscarriage, which may be more common after 35 age range. You can go into menopause, the body starts to change. It's harder for women to carry without having issues. Hormonal injections might come into play, artificial insemination, and other things. Sometimes it can just happen naturally. I remember it was a case I was looking at on YouTube. There was a woman and her husband. They had been trying to have a baby and they gave up on the idea of having any more children after they had their twins. They were like, okay, we're not going to worry about it no more. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Well, guess what? After they let it go and decided to leave it alone, she gets pregnant, only to come to find out she wasn't carrying one. She wasn't carrying two. She wasn't carrying three. She was not carrying four. She was carrying 5 babies. And it happened naturally. It was like, wow. There was a case, and I never forget it. If you go back and you look at my reels, I talk about this. There is a woman who carried 10 babies in Africa. And I'm still trying to figure who at one time. Jesus be a fence for that family. My God. But when you are birthing something, you're birthing your purpose. Age is nothing but a number. And dollar ain't nothing but a thing. To quote our lovely Aaliyah, much missed and resting in peace. But you can start a business at any age. You can restart anything at any age. Age brings wisdom and life experience. So with that being said, you can carry and make a different impact on people and on people's lives and businesses, managing loss and gain, nurturing at a mature level, and picking yourself up off of the ground and starting over because you understand it is not failure. You fail forward and you move forward. It ain't failure. It just means that you just learned a lesson in order to apply to the next rotation of how you're going to apply it to this very same thing and do it again. Abortion. No one likes to talk about this. When a person chooses to end the life of a child before it's born. And if we want to get political about this, I'm not going to go in depth in it. Society, it's a big fight even now politically, whether women have the freedom of choice as to should they or should they not abort a child if they choose not to carry it, so on and so forth. My thing is this. Personally, I believe that you should not abort a child unless it's going to cause physical harm to your body. Meaning, for example, if it's an ectopic pregnancy, meaning you're not going to be able to carry it to term anyway because it's located in the wrong position. So then, yes, you have to, because it's going to kill you irregardless. Then you have, but any other health concerns, meaning you carrying that child to term is going to cause your life to end in some way, shape, or form tragically if you carry the child in its fullness. Hello. Um, if you carry that child in its fullness. So you have to think about that. You got to think about yourself and the health of your child. That's the only time I would ever agree to the aborting of a child. Teenagers do it because they are afraid and they don't want their parents to find out. Parents refusing to help them take care of it. Fear takes over them, and some rare occasions, the life of the mother is put in jeopardy. Because you could be carrying a healthy child, but you don't want to carry it. You're not in the place or space that you desire that you want to carry it. And some people become afraid if they realize that their children may have some type of deformity, birth defect, or something going on within their body that would be a lifelong thing that they would have to take care of that child from fullness of term, from beginning to the end of their life. That child will never be a fully functioning human being. And some say they consider it being humane to abort that child, and I'm just like, somebody who doesn't have a child and has the skill set would probably want that child. So I don't think that there is a good enough reason other than it's going to kill you to abort a child. There may be someone that wants that child, that has a better ability and skill set, that may want to take care of that child and love that child fully. Now, what happens when you are pregnant with purpose? You are becoming afraid of something. You're afraid that something could occur and it could bring about a certain type of repercussion. There are people that they may have gotten the idea, but the idea of that thing coming to pass, or they feel like they got to put too much work into that thing coming to pass, causes them to feel like, I can't carry this, so they try to sell it, give it up, give it away, because they don't want it anymore. They don't see the potential in it. I've seen it happen. That there was a case, somebody I heard was talking recently, they said that they had a business conceptual idea, and they wanted so badly to give the idea away, and something in them and people around them told them, no, don't give it away, keep it. They kept it, and I believe within a year there was such a increase in the value of that thing that people were willing to purchase it for all this amount of money and invest in shares in that thing, because that's how lucrative it became in 1 year. And they almost sold that thing. Real talk. sometimes the pressure of the people around you will cause you to feel like you will not be able to carry it, that you'll end up losing it, that you aren't smart enough to keep it, that you'll be given advice and it's not enough to equip you to carry it. Perfect example, I was in a scenario a couple years ago where I was dealing with someone business-wise, and the person had a tendency, every time I brought information, we both were very much similar in our love of creativity, but when this particular person opened their mouth to talk about certain things to me, when I would bring them information because we had a good connection that I was working on, it was almost like they twisted what I said to a degree to make it more lucrative, that they would become the solution for my problem and that I couldn't solve it without their input. And they would confuse me enough that I would feel like, or tried to make me feel like, they were the only solution to that said problem. You see what I'm saying? So it's a peer pressure thing. When God gives you an idea, only He gives you the understanding. And He didn't give it to the other people for them to understand unless He aligns those people with you for that thing to fall into place. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to be very careful, because you could end up sharing it with the wrong person and have to end up picking up the pieces and salvaging what you created, and that wasn't the way it was meant to be created in the first place. And by doing that, because it wasn't the way it was meant to be created, that you have to either scrap the plan and it never actually happens. Next, another way that you can abort it is through fear. When a seed is planted, and a lot of us, if you've seen it, a lot of people are reposting this reel of Steve Harvey talking about how you do not share your plans with people that are small-minded, because the vision was not given to them, and their negativity will have such a big impact on what it is that you are trying to pursue and work through, that it will actually prevent you from being able to keep going, from healing, and speak premature death over that thing's life and or circumstances. And again, like I said before, with an ectopic pregnancy, this looks like the fallopian tubes, meaning the baby grew in the fallopian tubes, and because of that, it would never be able to grow to its fullness of size, because it would rupture the tubes and kill the mother. This can happen when you take a business idea, a concept, and you try to structure it, and you structure it in the wrong way, that the weight that you are trying to carry is not evenly distributed properly, that it can literally rupture the concept or idea. Thinking about it like this: what if you didn't have the right legal protections to the thing? Several years, it wasn't several years, it was a few years ago, there was a young woman, I don't remember if she was a publicist or something, but she worked for a company, I don't know whether it was a fashion magazine or something, and she was on Instagram and she posted something prematurely, and they came at her so hard for what she posted that they legally came against her, preventing her from using her own name, the business's name, and anything in relation to it that completely destroyed the structure of her business, and she could not start that business over again. And it literally took away her ability to continue to make money, thereby abruptly aborting what she was doing and had been doing for years. Some of us can understand that when it comes to these social media platforms. Think about it like this. When you come on these social media platforms and all of a sudden you're shadow banned for saying something that they don't agree with. Then all of a sudden your account no longer has any reach. All of a sudden your YouTube videos are no longer being seen. Or, like the young woman, Melissa Ramiro, she had a full account, was almost at 1 million followers, and somebody that she had hired that had a disgruntled issue when she had to let them go took all of her information and deleted everything in relation to her account. She had to fight to get all of it back, aborting everything that she had created. So all of these things are ways that it can affect you. Having to sell it and having to restructure it. But lastly, let's talk about birth defect. When it comes down to a business, what is a birth defect? It's kind of like when you create, or when a fashion company, for instance, they have a products that come off of the line that are defective and they can't sell them. So what they do is they end up selling them to your Marshalls and your Burlington Coat Factory. There's just a very minor issue wrong with it, and they can't sell it in the main batches. So it's something defective from the distributor. And if it's, for instance, I was listening to Diane von Furstenberg recently, and she was talking about sometimes what a developer will do is when they're ordering batches of clothing in units, that sometimes in the fashion world, things have to be done like this, and you need that shipment delivered out in enough time that it'll get to the show. And sometimes the show is that afternoon and the shipment came in that morning, and when the shipment came in that morning, guess what? The shipment came in, all the colors were wrong. You asked for Coral 3F259 and they sent you Coral 39F64, and the shade is off by 3 to 5 decibels, and you're like, oh my god. Then, and because that shade is off, if you use that shade, everything that you were going to use that matched the shade that was originally the shade that you were meant to be using is going to look off. It's like, why does that look like it's too light or too dark for everything else? That don't quite work. So either you have to use it or you have to abort it, but it's defective. The image is off. Maybe the logo was made wrong. Maybe it was printed out incorrectly. Maybe something happened in the processing that skewed it. The quality of the product. I remember one time I had ordered something and I wanted the quality to be good, but the elastic within the product was so tight that when I tested it out, it was like I couldn't even keep it on because it was so painful because of how tight the elastic was. I'm like, how am I going to sell this product in multiples? And it's this painful just for me to wear. And of course, like I said, your name. Anything in association with your name. Previously, when I was taking fashion courses years ago, I didn't know that if someone buys something from you and they come into association with you, and let's say they collaborate or come into alignment with you, and something were to occur and you want to sell the business or something, and some businesses will come undergird you just to steal it, and when they steal it, you no longer have the right to use the name associated with it, which makes it hard when you've made it a name brand, because it's your name that's attached to it. If something happens to screw that up, it messes with your ability to use your name on anything, meaning they legally have the right to prevent you from writing your name in any way, shape, or form at all. That's why they always tell you that if you're going to create a brand of some sort, don't use your name. You see people use their initials, you see people use something, but they do not use their own name. So with all of that, it can literally destroy you in one fell swoop, like I told you before. Another good example of that is Hurricane Katrina. People all got flood insurance for Hurricane Katrina, but the insurance company was not prepared to have to do a payout for all those homes that were affected in Hurricane Katrina. And the insurance company found a loophole where they said, well, due to the fact that these particular sectors and areas are not commonly affected by floods, we ain't paying y'all nothing because this is actually not natural for this to occur in this area. So they tried to loophole out of that because they knew if they had to pay out all of those insurance policies all at once, their company was going under because ain't nobody had that much money. Not that much money. Not at all. It was unethical and involuntary. It's the same thing with some other things that occurred legally recently. I was looking at a video and they were talking about, it was something, one of the high profile companies that is doing some pharmaceutical work is what I'm going to call it at this particular point in time, got in trouble and was being sued for a completely different thing than what they are famous in the media for right now. And they knew that if they allowed this thing to go through, they were going to have to pay out, and it was going to bankrupt them from being able to do what they were doing on the opposite side. So what they did was they created a dummy company, dropped all the cases in relation to the suitcase into that dummy company that only had a portion of a quota of amount of money, and they were going to divide that quota of amount of money out to the people that were suing them, which was nowhere near what they legally would have had to pay out had they allowed the suitcase to hit the main company. And legally, a lawyer or judge signed off on it. These are the kinds of things that we see occurring in our society. But there's another story. But with that being said, these are the ways that you can end up dealing with loss. And there are ways that you can prevent these things from occurring. It's the way that you take care of the thing, the way that you steward that thing. When you realize that you have an idea and it's not going in the direction in which you think or thought that it should have went, this is when you turn that idea, look at it, write it down, write the vision and make it plain on tablets. Observe, where did it go wrong and how can you improve that area that it went wrong in? Start it over, rename it, do something new with it, and start again. Because you already have the bare bones or the outline, because you already done did it once, it's not going to take you as long to do it a second time. Perfect example. I used to do my podcast, and then I would do the IGTVs. My podcast would be a half an hour. When I would do my IGTVs immediately after recording my podcast, the IGTVs would always be the 15 minutes that the IGTV was meant to be, because of the fact that I just talked about it. So the second time I talked about it, it took me half the time to talk and record it. So understand that you may go through it, but the second time you go through it, it's always going to be faster, easier, and you're going to know what pitfalls not to hit because you've already gone through it. Ergo, you're not going to abort it this time. You're not going to lose it, miscarry it, mishandle it, deal with stillbirth around it. You can do it this time. But that's pretty much what I want to talk about in this episode. If you enjoyed this, stay tuned. I'm planning to hopefully do another one in the next few hours. So keep your eyes and ears open. So this is Taj McCameron from The Steam to Live the Dream. Are you pregnant with purpose? Keep an eye out. This is episode 10. So go back and look at the previous episodes in the playlist for Are You Pregnant with Purpose? Until next time, much love, grace, peace, blessings. Love you. Bye-bye.